I'm author and speaker Jennifer Kennedy Dean, and I am excited to tell you today about my newest book. The book is called Synced, Living Connected to the Heart of Jesus. Now, a couple of things have fascinated me over these many years that I've been talking about prayer and teaching about prayer. One is that Jesus' disciples who had such a close-up view of his life, they recognized that there was some connection between his life of power and his life of prayer. And so they asked him to teach them to pray. And when they asked him that, it came on the heels, according to Luke, of an all-night time of prayer that Jesus had just emerged from. And so the second thing that fascinated me was, what was Jesus doing all night in prayer? He certainly wasn't spending all night trying to give God instructions. He certainly wasn't spending all night trying to tell God what needed to be done and what time it needed to be finished. So what was Jesus doing all night in prayer? And I began to realize over the years that surely what Jesus was doing was synchronizing his heart with the Father's. He was just taking the time to be fully present to the Father, no other distractions, and allowing the heart of the Father to be downloaded into his heart. And what that resulted in was a life lived in sync with the Father. Jesus didn't have to stop every few minutes and ask God what to do or where to be. And Jesus said, I just do everything my Father shows me to do. As he just walked through his day that followed on the heels of intensive prayer, he just found himself in the right place at the right time. And that's how God intends for us to live our lives, not struggling and agonizing to understand what is God's will, what do I do, what does God want me to do. We just live a life of prayer that puts us in the center of what God wants us to do. We find that we are where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be there, with the resources that we need. And it all flows out of a life of prayer. Let me just read you a short passage from the book to help you understand the point. A praying life is a life lived on earth in the power of heaven. The earthly life of Jesus demonstrates this paradox. The Son of Man lived every earthly moment in the power from on high. He lived a praying life. In and through Jesus, heaven invaded earth. His obedient praying life was the conduit through which heaven's power changed earth's circumstances. He lived and moved and had his being in the atmosphere of the spiritual realm, though he walked out his life as a man tethered to earth, just like we are. From the heavenly realms, he drew his energy and power, accessed wisdom and insight, secured peace and joy. He lived out of heaven's resources for the daily demands of earth's circumstances. He lived in the flow of God's power and provision. That's what this book is about. It takes the Lord's Prayer as the anchor points, not to understand how to pray. It's not a how-to book about prayer, but to understand how to live. To understand how the life that Jesus lived flowed out of the prayer that Jesus prayed. So I hope that you enjoy my new book, Synced, Living Connected to the Heart of Jesus.